Hey everyone, my name is Andrius. Welcome back to Going Deeper. Our uh, next episode is about anger. Uh, Last Sunday, we had Pastor Kevin from Kenosha share with us about this incredible emotion that all of us deal with from time to time. And today with me is David Nicholson. Hey, Dave.
Hello. Hey.
Good to have you, and thank you so much for just volunteering to share about anger in your life. This is not a topic that many people would volunteer for, and I really appreciate that. So thank you so much. So let's begin just with that. What can you share about anger in your life? What does that look like?
Yeah. So, like you said, it's a topic that people don't want to talk about a lot. It's something we try to suppress, maybe keep hidden. But um, in my life, and you and I talked about this, like this, I felt like I needed to volunteer for this one because there's so much history and so much past for me. Like Pastor Kevin interviewed the lady on Sunday, and she had this history of anger. And so in my life, growing up, I had a lot of anger issues, and people always just said I was short tempered or had a bad temper. But what I've learned is it's the control of what happens when you have that anger. But for me, it was just a lot of little things build up over time, and you become almost enraged. I
Mm,
also like what Pastor Kevin showed the emotions wheel, that there's so many different words we use, but it all is really just anger. Um, but yeah, the problem is the control of how we handle that anger. But yeah, for me, growing up, there were a lot of instances. I guess it's a good time to share some examples or whatever. But
sure,
um,
sure.
I would get mad. I would throw things. I would slam doors. My dad and I still talk about it to this day. We had a door in our basement, had three panes of glass in it, and I broke every one of them on different occasions, throwing things at my brother or slamming the door because I was mad at someone. One time I was installing a curtain rod. I was probably 11 or 12, so maybe the job was too big for me, but I couldn't get the screws to go in right, and I had a screwdriver in my hand. I was going to throw it down. I was so mad, and I accidentally threw it through the windows. So I broke a lot of windows in our house growing up, and it was just how I expressed the anger. And you know, I've learned a lot over the years. But like things still bother me, obviously,
Mm.
but I think more to the point is you learn how to control that, and I'm sure we'll get into that here in a little bit. But that's more of the issue is how we release and how we control rather than lashing out, throwing things, which was always my forte. I always threw things and yelled and threw things. So
Yeah, yeah. So, built up anger kind of does find a way out, one way or another, and sometimes it's in very destructive ways. And like, some of the things that you shared from your earlier days, that would be an indication of that as well. But the Bible tells us, in your anger, do not sin. And so then it's a question of, okay, so how do we deal with anger? Well, what do we do with it? How do we not bottle it up and find a way to, yeah, to deal with it in a healthy, good manner? What do you do?
yeah, there's a couple things there. So first of all, I want to hit the point that you said. You said built up anger, and I think that's a very good point because um, I know when Pastor Kevin interviewed Jordania, she had a historical anger towards her father, and this had been there for years and years. And that's not my type of anger.
Mm,
Mine is from stresses that build on top. That just keeps stacking up, one thing on top of the other, and it gradually builds throughout the day. So typically, for me, when I wake up in the morning, I'm in a good frame of mind until something goes wrong. And then there's, just that little bit of frustration and then something else. And it just builds throughout the day. So what I've learned for myself, and I mean, everyone has different outlets or whatever, but what I've learned for myself is um, usually like sometime in the afternoon, I need to just stop and take it to God and just say, look, I can't control these situations. I have to control how I um, react to the situations, but I can't necessarily control the situations. And I just have to pray that God takes that from me. And
Mm,
usually, for me, it's a reset pretty much every day, like in the afternoon sometime. Otherwise, it just builds up all day. And then again, yeah, I think you have to find your own release. For me, I always like getting out into nature. So, maybe once a week, maybe once a month, whatever. Just taking like a day, maybe it's only a half a day or something, but getting out into nature, climbing, walking, exercising, releasing some of the energy physically, also
mm,
helps us emotionally and mentally as well. So, doing some hiking, some type of strenuous work. I remember growing up when I would get really mad and angry, I could feel it building. I'd take a day or two and just go split wood all day out there with a splitting maul and setting up some wood, and like it's that physical release as well. It's super helpful. Um, so yeah, that's I think everyone has to find their own release though, um, and also not just physically, but like emotionally as well. Just having an outlet, having someone to talk to, and just work through the problem. Sometimes it helps just saying things out loud. I had a problem with this. I reacted this way, and then you're like, wait, I said that out loud. It doesn't sound like I reacted correctly.
yeah.
Sometimes in our mind we think we're doing things the right way, but once we say it out loud, you're like, well, that really wasn't the right thing to do. So
Mm, mm.
yeah, so even having someone just to sit down and talk to, um, once a day or once a week or something is helpful as well.
It's very true that when we are able to step back and to look at the situation like objectively, I'm
Mhm.
looking for a word here, but to look at something not from within the situation but from the outside, kind of, and try to be objective about it, and to be able to name our emotions, including anger, I think is very
Mhm.
helpful. And just as you say, then we can evaluate it correctly, and maybe also be able to kind of express those emotions, including anger, in some other ways. So like, yeah, like what you said, going for a walk or doing something in the nature or whatever,
Mhm.
those are all super helpful. And so you've mentioned that you would also bring it to God, and of course that is what we're supposed to do. And over the last few weeks, Luke and Tanya have spoken about the fact that we shouldn't let emotions be in the driver's seat. We shouldn't
Mhm.
let emotions control us, but to take a seat in the back, kind of thing. Uh, we are human beings. We do have emotions, and that's okay. It's a good thing. It's a God-given thing. And one of the things about
Yeah.
anger is that it shows us also things that are important to us. It's not necessarily a bad thing. When we get angry about something, it reveals that something is really valuable, important to us. And what would you say are the values in your life, um, when you look at your situations of anger? Like,
Mhm.
how does anger reveal your values and your priorities, maybe?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So I think for me, like the thing that triggers, I say triggers, the thing that triggers me the most is when I can't do something, and I start digging into the background of that. Maybe it's more a source of pride, but especially like when I'm doing stuff around the church or around my house. I want to do everything to the best of my ability. I want everything to be, the highest quality. I worked for a company for years. That's all we talked about was the highest quality. And everything I do, I want to be at the highest quality. So when I can't physically do something that I've done before, or something I'm working on doesn't turn out right, those are things that like really trigger me. And then also just based on my past, I worked in codes and standards for a long time. I was on the all the building codes in the U.S. Helped write a lot of those, and so rules and regulations are big to me. So when people don't obey rules, it drives me crazy. And you see it everywhere. You see it on the road, and that's what Pastor Kevin was talking about, road rage. And yeah, I get frustrated when I see people parking where they're not supposed to, or turning the wrong lane, doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. Because to me, those are rules. They're set there for a reason. And so those are some of my values. Like I highly value the quality of my work, doing everything to the best of my ability. I highly value rules and procedures and regulations and doing things in order. I believe God made us in order as orderly people. And I think that we're supposed to do things that way. And so that's why there's rules and regulations. But I
Yeah.
see when people don't follow them, it frustrates me so bad.
Mm. And of course, the fact is that people may not necessarily share the values that we have sometimes, right? There are some objective rule, for example, what you're saying, like traffic rules are rules for everyone, whether you have those values or not. You've got to obey the rules.
Right.
Uh,
Still the rule.
but
Yeah.
those are rules. But it's true that with some of the things, people may not necessarily share our values and do things differently. And we as people, we cannot control the behavior of other people, right? We can only take responsibility for our actions, for our attitudes, for the way we respond to situations. And so that's the struggle, I guess. So yeah, that creates anger in us. And then what do we do with that? So that's the thing. Now, is there such a thing as righteous anger? um, a type of anger that would be a justifiable anger, or like a good anger?
Yeah, and so Pastor Kevin really talked about this on Sunday about when Jesus went into the temple and overturned the tables of the money changers. So here's the big difference is what I was thinking through this on Sunday. Um, when I typically get angry, it's because of me. It's
Mm,
because of someone has done something that I value. Someone's done something wrong that I think they've done wrong. It's something that has offended me personally, and that's where the problem is. So we talk about a righteous anger. What Jesus had, Jesus would get angry when something was done wrong to other people, when other people were offended. And I think Pastor Kevin really drove this point home about, um, you know, Jesus was beaten, he was killed, murdered, without any reason. And was he angry at those people? No, he loved them.
yeah,
But the people he did get angry at, they didn't offend him. They were offending God and God's temple. Um, but they weren't really offending Jesus. And so, yeah, there's a right place for righteous anger. As long as your anger is not misplaced or misdirected. Whereas it's coming from your own personal offense. It's
mm,
offenses of others. When you're fighting for the beliefs of others. When you're trying to help good organizations or whatever that have been wrong. Yeah, there's a right place for that kind of anger. And I think, like you were saying, it's these emotions are God given emotions, and I think it's good to have a good righteous anger because it helps us it gives us motivation to correct the situation. You see Jesus's reaction when he went into the temple. I mean, he was motivated to go in there and throw over the tables because you know these people were doing something wrong that offended the God and the kingdom. So
mm,
it's good because it drives us. It gives us purpose and energy to do the things, the right things.
yeah. And there are plenty of causes, I think, in our day and time, uh, plenty of issues that we can see where people are mistreated,
Yeah.
this even makes me think about just the stories that came out in the United States last year,
Yeah.
with racism and
The
things like
racism. Yeah.
that, where
Hmm.
people have been so badly treated, and so that stirred up an anger in the society as well. And of course, it wasn't always dealt with properly. Um,
Right. Again, we go to the reactions. Is the
right.
reaction
Right.
appropriate or not. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, because we
Um,
can't always control the situation. We can't control what has happened, but we can control how we react. And yeah, it was good to have a good righteous anger in that situation. But did we
yeah,
go too far one way? Maybe. And it's how we react. We have to control how we react.
absolutely. Yeah. To wrap up, Dave, what would be your advice to someone who is dealing with anger at this time, or maybe just recognizes that it's hard to kind of control it, to contain it? What can they do? What would be
Yeah.
just quick tips?
So let me kind of separate these out. So like the deep seated anger, like a lifelong anger, like we listened to on Sunday in Jordania's case. I don't have any experience with that, so I can't really help other than to say, like she said, you have to find that time at the altar. You have to find the time to give it to God and really find the release with God for that. But in my case, these little things that build up every day, all day. The first thing is you have to clothe your day in prayer. You have to. I have to start there, and then, like I said, halfway throughout the day, some point throughout the day, I have to just stop again and say, "Look, God, this is not things that I can't control. I've been offended by things that have happened to me. I have to realize it's not about me. It's about Him. So that's another key.
Right.
Um, and then I just take that time and pray and say, God, look, I can't control the situation, but help me control my reactions. Help me control my emotions as these things build up. Because it's just not good. But like Caleb, my younger son, he points it out to me, and he'll call me out on it when he spills something in the kitchen in the evening, and I just fly off the handle and I yell at him. And he's like, "Why are you yelling? I just spilled something." But it's because stuff has built up all day, and I had this reaction. I finally blew up, and so I say, take time in the middle of the day, release that again. And then, again, if you can get out in nature, find what it is that gives you that physical release as well, gives you some quiet time with God. I try to do it. I try to do it daily, but definitely weekly, and every now and then, once every couple months, you need a full retreat just to get away from everything. All these little things. Pastor Kevin mentioned it in the beginning of his message. He talked about the things that make us angry, and he talked about the pandemic, the quarantine, the elections, the racism. All these things are going on that we can't control. And
Yeah.
if you dwell on those, they will continually build and build and build until you just blow up. And so, yeah, every now and then you need to just find a way to get a release, get away from all of it. Don't dwell on it. Don't think about all these things that we can't control, and find a way to get away from it and just refresh, basically.
Cool, cool. Absolutely. Thanks, Dave, for sharing. These are super helpful things, and just something that will, I think, definitely help us all reflect a little more about anger in our lives and what we can do about it. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. And thanks everyone for tuning
For
in.
having me.
Yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in, for watching this thing. And please join us for the Easter celebration just in a couple of days. We can't wait to celebrate Christ's resurrection together with you. God bless and see you next week.